to episode 229 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and we talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined by Kyle Springer on this spooky Halloween special.
Yeah, we're all dressed up in costume. I am Pizza Lord. Ha ha. Bow to me in my pizza-ness. And then, Melissa, you are dressed as Black Swan.
Honk.
Honk, honk.
Honk. Yeah, I gave myself the challenge of dressing up as something from the past year of the review show.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm like, oh, this is all in the makeup. This is the easiest thing for me to do.
I will join you on that endeavor next year if we stick to it, and that's what we decide to do. I think that's a good idea. But I saw this like pizza mask thing at Target. We have the whole inside joke on the captain's log that I'm Pizza Lord. So I was just like, you know what? I have to. That is like the perfect step up from me not being Jughead for 4 years in a row.
I love this pizza mask because you can combine it with so many other looks. I'd love to see you in the pizza mask and just a very nice suit and tie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Pizza man. Pizza Lord means business. Starting his pizza business empire. Good stuff. Good stuff. Melissa, it is Halloween weekend.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of plans for Halloween, or are you just staying home?
Tonight I've got a friend coming over. We're going to watch The Shining, a personal favorite of mine. My new roommate's going to join us. She's like, is that the hotel movie? I've never seen the hotel movie. Can I watch? We're going to make hot dog mummies. And tomorrow I've got my office party, and our department's group costume theme is Clue. But we're not just going to be the people from Clue. We can be any element of Clue. So I'm dressing up as the billiards room.
There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't have very many plans for Halloween. We are going to be carving a pumpkin tonight. It's been sitting on our porch, but uncarved. And so now we will decide what that pumpkin will be and figure that stuff out. But besides that, we're just chilling. We already rewatched Over the Garden Wall.
Good.
Which is such a fantastic show. But that's about it. Just passing out candy.
Nice. What candy did you get to pass out?
Oh man, we got these Snickers with like the nougat inside is green.
Woo!
We also
a Reptar
got
bar.
Yeah, something like that. We got like a mix of lollipops, of like Tootsie Pops, and there was something else that we got that I forget. That I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. I did see. I was hoping to get at some point, and we couldn't find like a big bag of them. They only have them in like small boxes for like a personal size thing, but they have mini fruit roll-ups now. It's not the full size, but they have like smaller ones, and I was like, oh my gosh, man, that would be so cool to like mix in there with the candy and have that, but they did not. So
unroll it and it's just the size of a Post-it note. That's so cute.
Kind of, yeah. It's like half of in there, and it's just like it's not the full thing, but just a small little snacks. So
cute.
Oh well, but we are not here to talk about the stuff that's happening in our universe, Melissa. We're here to talk about what's happening in the Twilight Zone.
Yes. This is formatted kind of like our sitcom specials in the past, where you and I would give each other 3 episodes of a personal favorite show that the other person doesn't really know. But we both know the Twilight Zone. We wanted to talk about it. And it's one of those old shows that has a season of like 35 episodes.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's each pick 3 episodes and we'll talk about these 6. And I think we've got a real interesting mix of Twilight Zone episodes. This was fun.
We do. Yeah. This was a lot of fun. I have very, very fond memories of the Twilight Zone. Around this time of year, this is what me and my family would do, is we would just put the Twilight Zone on, because it's on like all Halloween weekend on a marathon on some
it's Sci-Fi Channel. They'll do it all the time. They do frequently have done it for New Year's Day, and I think like
that too.
4th of July weekend once.
Interesting. Yeah, and so that's what we would do, is we just put that on, we'd binge watch it, we'd make pizza, we'd make snacks, we'd do all sorts of stuff, and we just hang out on Halloween weekend and New Year's, right? And all that good stuff. So I've seen a lot of Twilight Zone. At one point, when we were shopping at Costco, we found the box set of like the DVDs. Here they all are, seasons 1 through like 12.
There's 5 seasons.
This thing divided them up into like 10 seasons. So I don't know. That was the thing. So we ended up watching these episodes on Paramount Plus. I did notice that the first 2 seasons were available on Pluto TV for free, which actually covered most of what we watched. We only mainly watched stuff from the first 2 seasons, I think. Except
we got a little in season 3
of them. Yeah, but that's the thing. Is like Paramount Plus had seasons 1 through 5. I don't know if that was all of the episodes, period, or
I think so.
Because that, like, I distinctly remember this box set being like, here's seasons 1 through 10. So I don't know if this broke it up further.
Well, maybe there was like a later revival of the show.
This was all the old stuff. There are like more recent revivals. So I don't know, like the way they did seasons back in the day was very different from the way television does them now.
Yeah.
So maybe they were also dividing them up by like the year they aired or stuff like. There may have been some extra thing in there, but yes, there is at the very least a good majority of them on Paramount Plus. That's where you can go check them out. But Melissa, what episodes did we watch?
Okay, we watched episode 1, Where Is Everybody? And then we watched episode 22, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. We watched episode 34, The After Hours. That's all in season 1. And then we watched Long Distance Call. That was season 2, episode 22. We watched The Howling Man. Where's the Howling Man? Oh,
that one's also
season 2, episode 5, the Howling Man. And then finally, It's a Good Life.
That's the one I think was in season 3.
Yes. Season 3, episode 8, It's a Good Life. Yeah, so your picks were episode 1, Where Is Everybody? Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, and Long Distance Call. And I picked The After Hours, The Howling Man, and It's a Good Life.
Indeed. So what is your experience with the Twilight Zone?
Same as most people's, I think. It wasn't a show we watched as regularly, as traditionally as I think you watched it, but you know, I come from a sci-fi family. We'd turn those marathons on.
Yeah.
I think I got a DVR for the first time shortly before one of those marathons. So it's like, I can record a bunch of specific episodes. It's not just whatever is on when I turn the TV on. So I did a bunch of that when I was in like high school at some point. I know all the pop culture references, how many episodes of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror that are taken from Twilight Zone. my nephew grew up loving the show. And when he was 10 years old, he dressed up as Rod Serling for Halloween.
That's awesome.
And he's got a little suit. He's got a fake cigarette. And he had his face painted entirely black and white.
That's cool.
And he'd go door to door trick or treating, giving them the opening spiel. I I don't know if we still have pictures of this. It's probably
amazing.
on like right. It's on like a mid 2000s cell phone somewhere.
That's so cool. Yeah, the Twilight Zone is such an interesting thing because they did try to do like a modern day revival of it. I think in the early 2000s is the first one that they did, and then they did a more recent one with Jordan Peele being the host. I have not watched either of them, so I can't really speak to if they're good or not. I don't think the mid 2000s one was super well.
Yeah, I don't know
received.
anything about that one. I don't really know much about the Jordan Peele one either, but I think it's just because Paramount Plus is not that prevalent of a streaming service. Yeah. Like the only person I know with Paramount Plus is my dad, who's watching it for like Yellowstone and old Star Trek.
Yeah, and then there's me, who's constantly like, watch The Offer on Paramount Plus.
Yeah. People do like The Offer.
It's great.
People are talking a lot about The Offer, but I don't know if I've heard anybody who's like, I got Paramount Plus for The Offer, and then I went back and checked out that Twilight Zone.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it's wild to me because the stories that they tell on the Twilight Zone are often very, very simple.
Yes.
Just real quick stories, just a real quick, like, what if scenario. But they often do such a great job that they're still cool to watch today. It's just, there might be some cheesy effects here and there, some weird costumes of just like, what is this? This is ridiculous. But it's still it's fun. It's fun to watch. And even in its creepiest moments, it's still just like, wow, that was actually a really interesting story. Like that, like, okay. That's kind of creepy. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was really fun. I think we have a good grab bag of that today in the ones that we picked, of just stuff that's like, that was a good story, or oh, that was interesting. What a weird costume, or what a weird effect, or stuff like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some just sort of speculative fiction. We've got the more metaphorical, symbolical folly of man stories. We've got a true horror story. What I think It's a Good Life is one of the scariest things to exist in any form. The Twilight Zone is such an example of doing a lot with a little, and like how much you can do with like a limited budget, limited set pieces, limited actors.
Absolutely.
Showing a lot of stuff off screen. Not that this is a cheap show, but just it's produced in like the 1960s. Like there's only so much a TV episode could be.
Yeah. Man, I still recommend it. It's fun to just go check out, do some research on like, what are the best Twilight Zone episodes out there, and just at least go check that stuff out. Or like, Kind of Dead is like, what are the scariest? What are the spookiest? Right. And just take a list like that and guide yourself through it. I think that'll be a great time. Great time indeed. Do you have any other kind of final things to say before we dive into spoilers and stuff after this?
No, I think let's go ahead and do the housekeeping, do the spoilers. There's not much of a synopsis we can offer. It's the Twilight Zone. You know it.
You'll love it.
Yeah.
There's a signpost. The next town up ahead, the Twilight Zone.
Right. There's a signpost. Our next segment up ahead, spoilers, after we take a sharp left turn at the mysterious void of housekeeping.
Exactly. With that, we will be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and we'd love it if you check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnauts, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and a thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/The Whatnauts, and we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you'd like to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. Big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We thank you a ton. It means a lot.
Thank you.
For our Pilots Club, our Patreon exclusive podcast for all of you at the $3 tier, this past month here in October, we discussed the pilot of Mockingbird Lane, which is a modern day take on the Munsters, co-created by Brian Fuller. Never made it to a full series, but it was aired as a Halloween special some years ago. And then I believe right after this, Melissa, you and I are recording the Pilots Club on Mystery Incorporated. It is a live action take on the Scooby-Doo mythos. And it was from some indie filmmakers. Their names I don't know off the top of my head, but we'll have that info in the episode when we talk about it. But it is very much a Riverdale inspired take on Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. So if you're interested in that, that will be up for November, in early November. So be on the lookout for that. But let's see. That being said, here on the review show, we've gotten into all kinds of spooky stuff this whole month. We watched Happy Death Day. Happy Death Day to you. We read some Junji Ito comics. We read his anthology called, what was the
Shiver?
Shiver.
Shiver was great.
Shiver was fantastic. That was also very Twilight Zone like in some of them. But yeah, some real spooky stuff in that. After that, we watched. Oh God, my mind is blanking on everything now. Help me,
we
Melissa.
watched the Abominable Dr. Phibes, which is a 1971 Vincent Price movie, and boy, is it a trip.
That one was fun. That one was a blast. I mentioned that one to my parents, and my dad knew it immediately. He was like, "Oh yeah, that was a good one. That's a classic." And then this past week we watched season 1 of Servant on Apple TV Plus. This is from M. Night Shyamalan. When it's what starts out as a creepy doll horror turns into so much more. The twists and turns, and that one is just a mile a minute. That was an interesting one to watch because the breakneck speed in which it goes from this kind of horror to that kind to this kind to that. It's wild. So go check all of that stuff out. We've had some fun on the Captain's Log. We were in costume for the Captain's Log this past week as well, and we did our Halloween tradition of taking stories and stuff that we have told on the Captain's Log, things that have happened in real life to Melissa or me, and we have twisted those into horror stories. We've reimagined them, and that was a blast. We always have a lot of fun
every year.
Yeah.
And instead of our Rod Serling presenting these Twilight Zone as horror tales is some sort of fast food homunculus named McRib Sterling.
Yep, he's our Rod Serling. There's all sorts of like crazy lore with him. It's fun. But yeah, and then for the reactor core, be on the lookout for some more stuff coming up. We're gonna have some more reactions of Star Wars Andor as that comes out. I don't think I'm gonna do one on Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, but that one, God, that anthology was incredible. Go watch that. I highly recommend it. Even if you don't know too much about Star Wars, I think it is an effective, like, here's these smaller vignettes. You get to see a young Count Dooku and a young Qui-Gon Jinn. You get to see the birth of Ahsoka. You get to see some really neat moments in that, and I highly recommend it. But yeah, I think that is about it for housekeeping. So let's get into spoilers and start breaking down these episodes of The Twilight Zone. Here we are in spoiler territory. Melissa, I think we have to start with episode 1.
Yes.
Where is everybody? This was the one that they chose to kick off the entire show with. I thought, hey, this would be an interesting tone piece to start out with. Why not just start with episode 1? So what did you think of Where is Everybody?
I was watching it and I felt like it was a story that could have been accomplished in a shorter amount of time. Like, I could see this as just like a real quick in and out, like 12-minute short film somewhere.
Sure, yeah.
But I think the 25-minute length does get you more into our main character's headspace and how much all the isolation is wearing on him. Because he just walks in the small town one day. He's lost. He doesn't know where he's going. He feels like he's been in some sort of an accident. Like he can't remember anything about himself.
Doesn't really remember who he is.
Yeah. He's healthy. He feels fine. He just can't remember anything. And he's like, let me go into town. Let me get some food. Let me find some answers. And nobody's there. You can't find anybody. It's like a fully living town. It's not a ghost town. You know, he goes into a diner and there's like food back there in the kitchen that he can cook for himself, but there's not a single human soul. And you just watch him wander around this town for at least like a day. And he's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, it's a little bit longer than that, but they're not really like he spent 2 weeks. They're just like, he's at this place, can't find anyone, and it's driving him nuts. And the thing that I find scary about this is that there's little hints and clues that there are people there. There are like they're maybe they're hiding or they're somehow evading him. But there's just these little hints that people are watching or stuff like that. He gets into the local diner. No one's there. He hops behind the counter. He goes in the back. And there is a fresh pot of coffee, still hot.
Yeah.
There, you can see the steam. And so it's like someone had to have made that. Like someone had to have put that on there and hit the button to like start the coffee. But no one is there, right? I think there's another time he's also in the diner or something, and he sees a cigarette that's in an ashtray, and it's smoking. It's just like someone was here just a second ago, and that is so spooky. Like that is just like, what is happening here? What is going on? Why am I the only one here? Where is everyone?
Yeah.
Why are they avoiding me?
And he goes through so many possibilities. He's like, am I hallucinating this? Is this a dream? But he picks up this like flyer in the soda shop that's like, congrats to our local basketball team. Here's the rest of their games for the season. Here's the high schools they're going to. Here's the teams they're playing. And he's like, I would not invent this level of detail. I can't dream this. This has to be real.
Yeah. And it turns out that all these things I think are supposed to be hints at like who he is and who his identity is. He must have been a basketball player at that high school. He eventually stumbles into the movie theater that night because all the lights start coming on, and he realizes based on like what's been playing and stuff like that he was in the Air Force, and so he stumbles in the movie theater being like, hey, I was in the Air Force, I was a pilot, I was in the air, and just no one is there. It's just he's trying to find someone to help him, just to figure out who he is, just to get some food, a place to sleep, what is happening, and he just can't figure it out. But yeah, he keeps being drawn into these places of like, oh, I need food, so I'll go to the diner. Oh, there's a vehicle, maybe I can go to the next town. He opens up the car door because he thinks he sees someone inside it. It's a mannequin, and she just falls out, and he has this like moment of desperation where he's just sitting there talking to the mannequin. He's like, you believe me, right? But then it like the whole twist on this first one is that he's training to be an astronaut, that they have stuck him in this isolation chamber to just be by himself, and regardless of, or mostly regardless of what happens in this isolation chamber, he needs to get used to being by himself. No matter what he hallucinates, he thinks, what his reactions are, he needs to be by himself. And so, yes, he is in this chamber being observed by these other military people to kind of evaluate him. What did you think of the twist? Like, is that like, did you know that that's what it was gonna be, or were you unsure still, and then it hit and you were like, oh, okay, that makes sense?
Well, I think I had seen this one before, and I did remember that this was an isolation test, but gotcha. I forgot that all of it is in his head. He is just in like a little just like a little observation chamber hooked up to all these machines, and the machines are like projecting this like mental simulation. Like the town he's in is not a real space. He's in some sort of a matrix area. And that part I forgot about. And I think in real life, he has lasted quite a long time in that chamber. It has been like 2 weeks or something, even if it doesn't feel like that to him in his mind. And all the generals and everybody are like, this is still really hard. We haven't quite cracked it, but I think we're making progress. And it's all in the name of getting up there to that moon. And the episode ends with like he's ill. He's made himself sick being in this chamber. He's being like carted away by these generals like to be taken to like a healthcare facility. And he looks up to the moon and he's like, we'll get you. No matter what it takes, we'll get up there. Yeah, and this was from this was from 1959.
Yeah,
a whole 10 years before Moon.
Yeah. I feel like for a speculative sci-fi horror show that the Twilight Zone turned into, I think this was a great one to start out with, just because it has that really good twist. It has the horror stuff of like, is he alone? We don't know. And then it does have that sci-fi twist to it of like, hey, the space race is happening. Like it's just starting. We are trying to get to the moon. Yeah. And this was something that was on people's mind of just like, how do we build a rocket? How do we build a spaceship to get to the moon? So
this one's really non-judgmental. Like after he gets out of the chamber, you learn that he willingly subjected himself to this. He's like, I know this is part of the training to be an astronaut to go to the moon. It's not like these generals like shoved him in there against his will. It's not an episode about it's an episode about the consequences we pay consciously, what we decide to put ourselves through, not what we're forcing other people to go through.
Right.
In the name of progress. He's like, I know I will have to go through this painful, unnatural isolation to get to the moon, and it's worth it for me.
Yeah. Good stuff. I liked that one a lot.
And it was really...
Oh, go ahead.
Well, our next one is The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. And these were a really interesting pair of episodes to watch back to back, because the first episode is about the dangers of no people. And this episode is about the dangers of people.
Yeah.
So no matter what situation you're in, you can't win, according to the Twilight Zone. I watched these two and I'm like, well, what's the answer, Rod? How many people am I supposed to be around at any given time? Because it's one about how horrible it is to be alone, and the next one's about like the dangers of like mob mentality and like inter-community suspicion.
Yeah,
it's like
it's the whole like Red Scare, xenophobic, just like you're an outsider, but you do this weird thing at night, and I don't really know what it is. And it's kind of suspicious.
I will say this was one of your picks. I know that The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is a classic, and I think it does hold a great symbolic, metaphorical value. But looking at it at the surface as a literal story, these people are so dumb, I can't buy it.
I still think it holds up today because of the kind of tale it is telling. Like this is the mob mentality, and let's be honest, sometimes that mob mentality can just be so dumb. Like someone would say, but you do this thing. I saw you staring up at the sky. Like, what does that mean? And then everyone is just like, yeah, what does that mean? Right? Like,
what bugs me about it is that, so it's just this really cute suburban neighborhood. Everyone's out on their lawns, doing housework, playing, reading a magazine in a lawn chair, whatever. And then this like mysterious light passes overhead and all their electricity goes out. And they're like, what was that? Was that a meteor or something? Was it a solar flare? Where's our power? Why won't our cars start? And this one boy, the only child you see in the entire thing, he's like, I read something like this in one of my comic books. It was an alien that came down to Earth. The alien's plan was to infiltrate the people. He was disguised just like one of them, and he took away all their power. And everyone's like, that couldn't happen. And it's the fact that, right. If this was a story where aliens were already proven to exist and it was about this community figuring out, oh, one of us must be an alien. That must be the cause of this. We are being sabotaged. We are being infiltrated. I get that. But the fact that a boy's like, I read something about this in a comic book. And then everybody's like, well, the comic book must be true. The comic book says there's an alien. There must be an alien here. It's that leap. It's that jump that I can't get past.
Because it's not necessarily that they don't believe him at first. And even like as it continues, they're still skeptical of that. Like, we're believing the kid with the comic book story. Like that, like they mention that, but it's not really that this neighborhood is taking this leap of faith. Like this is doing what I think a lot of great sci-fi ends up doing, is it is a metaphor for something else just once removed. Which I know you know that. but that is what's so good about this one, and that's why it still holds up today in my mind, even if it is ridiculous that they're like, it was an alien, a UFO, but it is this just. I mean, if they took this literal of like, we've been infiltrated by communists, or it's the Russian spies, or it's the who knows what, right? Like, it's the exact same stuff of it. Like, they said they would they look just like us. They'd plant them. They might not even know that they're spies, and they did this, and they've been activated, and now that, and it's just once that seed has been planted, they start jumping to more and more ridiculous claims, and they start blaming, well, like, why is your electricity on? What did you do? Why are you behind this? And he's like, I don't know why my electricity is on. I'm here with you. Like, like that stuff is all very scary. And it happens today. It happens online. It happens in real life. All that stuff is, man, it hits so close to home still today, and I think that's why I like this one so much. This is one of my favorites. That it's such a good little like parable of like, this is kind of what happens when you're in that situation, right?
Like I said, I understand it on that level. It's just I can't put myself
real.
Right. I can't put myself in the shoes of these people who are like, oh, the power went out in the neighborhood. It must be an alien. Aliens are real. One of them is right here. It's the initial jump of, well, there's some sort of supernatural threat. I get the part. I get like step B. I don't understand step A. I can't get there.
They did see that like meteor, or what they thought was a meteor falling from the sky. So that would be like, hey, in like post World War II, just started the space race. Like that is big on their minds. Like, what is out there in space? And they see this thing falling from the sky. And shortly after, all the power goes out. It is this mix of like everything that they were thinking of in the times, right? What's out there in space? Are there spies in our midst? Is it the communists? Right? Who knows?
I know this. I feel like I'm the person out here ruining everybody's fun. But like the mix of...
Not at all.
I understand that you have questions about, are we alone in the universe? Could there be a UFO? Could there be an alien? And what if some sort of human enemy threat has infiltrated our neighborhood? But the step in between, the connective tissue of not just, I think there are aliens, but there are aliens that can exactly mimic humans, and they've lived in the suburb for years. We got to find out which one it is.
I mean, we don't know what they could do. They're aliens. We don't know what they look like.
The leaps are so big. I can't. It's entertaining. I do like that it is just massive cluster of people just hustling from house to house, yelling and pointing fingers. It would be really fun to see this as a play. Like a dozen actors on stage on some big stage with a bunch of painted house fronts. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
There's one part where we've mentioned that they find all these reasons to find each other suspicious. Like, well, this is the last guy to move to the neighborhood. You know, this guy, I see him standing up at night looking at the stars. Why would you look at stars? And he's like, I like stars. And they're like, no, you're waiting for a message. But the part where one guy's like, the lady's like, your wife told me you've been working on a radio in your basement. And then one guy's like, a radio? I've never seen this radio. And then there's the most dramatic music sting. Like, you don't know every single possession your neighbor has? That's suspicious. I think he's a Martian.
Yep. Every leap after that just gets more and more ridiculous. And then by the end, they end up forgetting that they sent someone to the next block over who's been gone for the entire afternoon and comes back
dark
when it's
now.
Dark. Yeah, he's been gone for hours. And they just completely forget about him. He comes back, they shoot him, they kill him. And we don't know if he was just chatting it up with someone that they know down the road here. Who knows? But at the end, it does turn out to, in fact, be aliens. And that they are just fucking with this neighborhood and just being like, let's turn all the power off. Now, what if that guy's car works and they have some like device to like do all of this stuff? And they're like, they have one alien that is more experienced and has done stuff like this before, and another one that's like, so this is the pattern, huh? And he's like, yep, every single time you just like mess with the lights and then they go nuts, right? So yeah, I like that one a lot. That's one of my favorites. But it's an interesting one.
The next episode we watched, I think, was The After Hours. This was season 1, 34. I picked this,
Melissa.
Just
I knew you were gonna pick this one.
Just for the very selfish surface reason of it takes place in a department store, and I just wanted to go to a 1950s department store. And it's this woman who's wandering around. She's found, like, in the catalog, she saw like a picture of a gold thimble. And this is back when a gold thimble was like the raddest gift you could get your mom. She's looking around for it, and somebody in an elevator takes her up to she's like, they're like, that's on the 13th floor. That's not in housewares. That's in specialty items. I'll take you there. She goes to the 13th floor, and it is completely barren. There's like one counter and one lady working there and that one thimble. And she thinks it's weird, but that's what she came there for. So she went ahead and buys it. And then when she's on the elevator back down, she's like, well, this thing's scratched. It's dented. Like, I don't even want it anymore. I'm going to go return it. So she goes to the department store office and they're like, lady, where did you buy it? There's no 13th floor. That's impossible. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny how small scale this is. Just like she goes to a floor and they're like, we don't have that one. That's not the right part of the store that you bought it in. And it could be as easy as, well, just hand wave it away. Like, it's worth keeping a customer. Just exchange her. Just get her a different thimble. Just give her $25 back.
Yeah.
But there isn't a very eeriness to you're taken to a space that you were in, and everybody's like, no, that we don't have that. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a 13th floor. You were somewhere weird already, and then to find out that the weird place doesn't exist at all makes it worse. And she doesn't even have a receipt. She has like no proof, and she's like, I will prove to you I'm not going insane.
Yeah. And then she sees the woman that sold it to her, and she's like, it's her.
Yeah.
Right there. And she's like, hey, whatever your name was, over here. And then as she's like yelling out for her, someone else comes up behind this woman and picks her up. The woman is a mannequin.
Yes.
And she's just like, oh my God, what is this? I'm horrified. It looked exactly like her.
And then she just has a faint. She just faints, and they're like, we'll put her on the couch and we'll see if she feels better. And then they just straight up leave her there overnight.
Yeah.
Like, they close the entire department store, and she wakes up on this little couch in the office, like, after it's dark and nobody's there.
It's so funny.
And this part is really well done. Just her quietly walking through this deserted department store. There's no music. There's hardly any Foley sounds. It's so quiet, and it's just shot with such a sparseness to it. I think the fact that this is clearly a set decorated to look like a department store. It's not a real department store. There's kind of an emptiness, a fakeness to it that I think really lends itself particular to these scenes where she's walking down these like empty, like wide aisles that just have got counters with a couple perfume bottles on either side. It's so sparse. It's so isolating. And then the part where all the mannequins are talking to her, just like
when
mouths
come
not
to
moving.
Life is wild.
Oh,
yeah.
That's incredible. Yes, like it's a wide shot of all these mannequins, and then one by one they turn into, like, they don't turn into real people. Like, the actor starts moving, they unfreeze themselves. And they do such a good job of staying that still. Like, that's just an actor who is staying still. but it's so convincing that you're like, is there a camera trick here? How are you that good at this?
What's interesting about this one to me is that the first time you see the mannequin of the woman that sold her the thimble, you're like, man, that is spot on. Like, that looks exactly like her. Same. It's not just like same outfit and makeup on the mannequin, but even like the facial structure of the mannequin itself. I'm just like, man, that looks exactly like her. And yeah, there is the scene where she's wandering around whatever floor she's on, and the mannequin starts speaking to her, and it's very obvious that those mannequins are mannequins. And it's just like, this is okay, weird. And then there was I do have to say, when it's the first two that speak to her are women, and I don't remember her name, but they're like, Catherine. And then there's like the male one that has it, and it is the most like sensual the way for him to say, he's just like, Catherine. It's just like, oh God. And then they show his face, and it's just this stupid mannequin. It's so funny. It is. I got the biggest laugh out of that. I was just like,
and so all the mannequins come to life and surround her, and they're from all different parts of the department store. So they're wearing all sorts of different clothes. And there's two mannequins that are from like a winter sportwear section, and they're wearing these ski masks, which are
balaclavas.
They're weirdly unnerving in this context. They tell her like, you stayed out there too long. It was your turn yesterday. That's why we took you up to the 13th floor. You were supposed to come back. You're done with your mannequin room spring up.
Yep.
Right. I love this world building, that this is a world where all mannequins can come to life. They all know each other, and they all have this system where you get 1 month to go out into the world and live as a normal human being.
Yeah.
And then you come back, and then it's somebody else's turn.
Yeah. It's an interesting twist, and it's an interesting thing to like do a horror episode on, right? Like, mannequins are creepy, and when I was in college, behind my art building, there used to be this kind of thrift. It's not really a thrift shop. It was more of an antique store, but it was it was like a junk antique store, if that makes sense. And it was just this like warehouse-sized store with just all sorts of odds and ends. And they had an entire room dedicated to mannequin parts. And it was the creepiest room I have ever been in, because you go in and it's just boxes of like legs and arms and heads and torsos, and they're not put together. It's not like the full mannequin on this stuff. Like, you have to build it yourself and be like, I want, all of these things. But like, that's what you could do, is like, if you needed a hand to go draw or something like that for some sculpture or something like that, you could just go there and pick up a mannequin part. But there is something like inherently creepy about these like fake humans just standing there and having this like soullessness to them as they look out, but us like dressing them up to kind of like to make them look more like us. There's something like just inherently creepy about that. Like, why do we do this? Right? Like, why not have actual models on these things, like walking around this? Like, why not have the people in the store like helping you in these outfits and stuff, and being like, I'm the winter help. You need some help? I can
something about
you.
Living models in a department store is almost creepier. It's so unfeasible.
I never said it was a good idea, all right, but just working through it. But yeah, like I remember watching this one when I was younger and wanting to avoid this one just because I was so creeped out by these mannequins coming to life, and just like, this is one of my least favorite in the sense that they're just like, I'm scared of this one. Like this, I don't like this one. This is creepy.
What I like about this episode is that mannequins are creepy. But the twist at the end is that they're not at all threatening. Like they're not angry at our main girl. They're just sort of disappointed. Like they're just chiding her. Like, come on, it's time to come home. You're not playing by the rules. Come on.
They adore us, right? They're like, man, we want our time to go to live with them, but we can't just do it all at once.
Right.
We have to send one of you out, right?
Yeah. And I like that they view humanity positively and that they view each other positively. It's not like, you broke mannequin code, we're going to throw you down the stairs now. They're like, no, just come on back. It's someone else's turn now. You have to play fair. I like what a little community they are. I like that this is an episode that is less horror and less social commentary and just sort of like an interesting kind of whimsical speculative fantasy story. What if mannequins came to life?
Even just the idea that like, hey, at home, like you're a certain person. You might wear certain clothes to be comfortable and do all that stuff. You have your interests, your hobbies. You're one person when you're there, but maybe when you go out to work and you do all that stuff, you have to put on a different persona. You have to perform here on the podcast, right? I have to be talkative and out of myself, whereas in real life, I'm actually very quiet and I just like keeping to myself and doing my own thing, right? There is that kind of commentary in this one.
Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting mirror to Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, where there's a fear of what if there's a non-human entity infiltrating humans and sabotaging us. And this is a story about a non-human entity who goes to live a normal human life, not for any ulterior motive, just because they want to experience what it's like. It's the first one was, what if somebody around you isn't human in a suspicious way? This is more like whimsical, fantastical. Like, it's like you never know where somebody's coming from. You look at a normal person and maybe that's not a normal person, but it's something trying to be a normal person. But it's not scary. It's sort of, he said, whimsical. Like you're happy for these mannequins to go on this journey at the end of the episode. You're like, that sounds fun. Enjoy your month off.
Yeah, indeed. I have one more thing to say about this one. Less so about this episode, more so about my experience with this one. So rewatching this now, this is not at all what my memory of this episode was. In my mind, I remembered this episode like she ends up discovering that the mannequins are real. And then somehow decides to like join them and become a mannequin. And she was a real person and then like gets connected with their society or who knows, like discovers their secret and then is like enticed by like that. And I don't know where I thought of that or like how I came to like that's what I thought this episode was and why I thought it was so scary and stuff, like just like the fact that you could it's like I almost thought it was like a reverse Pinocchio, right? Where she starts real and then ends up becoming this fake mannequin. But that's not what happened. But who knows? But I just thought that was an interesting thing to put out there. Be like, this is not at all what I thought it used to be. But
nice.
Cool. That's it.
It is fun how your memory will change these things. And, and you realize, and you're like, there's a twist somewhere. I know there is a twist. You have the ingredients for what's involved.
I know
twist,
that mannequins are real, right? But
right, you will completely
how?
make up your own separate twist.
Yeah, indeed.
Our next episode is this is the Howling Man. This is one of my picks.
Yeah,
this is from season 5, season 2, episode 5. This is an episode I caught once and I really dug, and it never shows up on those best of lists. I think because the story itself is I don't know if the story itself is like anything that memorable, but the visual style of this episode I think is stunning. I think this episode is so remarkable from just a technical perspective.
So this is one that I actually had not seen before. Well, I want to say probably because it might not be on like the top whatever list of like, oh, you need to see this. But when I looked up potential ones to watch for this week, I looked up like what are the scariest Twilight Zone ones, and it was in all of those lists.
Oh, good.
It was like, yes, the Howling Man is up there. You need to watch that one. So maybe up there in scariest, but not necessarily up there in like the best of them that you need to watch. But yeah, I hadn't seen this one before, so this one was completely new to me. And it was an interesting one. Visual styling is very different because it does kind of remind me of those old like Universal monster movies. Like he's almost in this like old like Frankenstein castle or Dracula's castle, right? But he gets there and everyone almost looks like Moses, right? They're this like very biblical like order of monks. So it is essentially this one starts out with this guy just sweating, this real sweaty man being like, let me tell you my story. You won't believe it at first, but it's true, all of it.
I have to describe this shot. The camera starts on this like rain and thunderstorm dark night, and it like swivels around like through the window, and it arcs around this guy as he turns from the window back around to face the camera. Like you said, sweaty, desperate, and he's like, you won't believe this story, but I'm telling you it's true. Like the camera's so many like slanted angles and it keeps swooping around. It's not like you're like they stuck it in one like canted angle and shot an entire thing like that. The camera keeps moving around like every axis of the set, and it keeps like swooping around people. It's so wild, and I've never seen anything else from this time period that looks like this.
Yeah, it like they do all that stuff to make you feel very uncomfortable, to not get like it's not just that Dutch angle, but like you said, it keeps moving and swooping, and you're doing so like you feel like you just can't sit still. You can't figure out like it's almost like stepping onto a boat for the first time, where you're like, okay, I'm standing on something, but it keeps moving, so I can't really get a good footing here. But yeah, so it kind of dives into this tale of him stumbling into this castle. I forget why exactly, but he's
well, it's set in like the late 19 teens, early 1920s, post World War One.
Yeah.
And this American man is going on a backpacking trip through Europe.
That's right.
And he gets caught in a rainstorm, and he goes into this monastery up in the mountains in like Germany or Austria or somewhere, just looking for shelter for the night.
Yeah, and this is where he finds this like weird order of monks that all look like Moses. They have these big canes, these big like beards.
Yeah.
They just look like a character you would see in those old like the 10 Commandments movie or something like that.
This episode is a period piece, but these guys look ancient.
Yeah. And he's asking for food and shelter, and they're just like, no, but you know what? I'm gonna have to talk to whoever's in charge here to
Brother
do this.
Jerome will rule on this.
Yeah. And so they bring him to Brother Jerome. And he's just like, look, it's pouring rain. I'm lost. I need some help. Can you like give me a little bit of food and like let me sleep here for the night, and I'll be on my way. And he's just like, no, like you need to leave now. Like this is not a place that you should be here.
Yeah.
And he's just like, but you don't understand. It's raining outside. I'll get wet. I'm lost. Right? Help me.
It's such a bad storm. They're in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, this is a monastery. Like this is a place of faith. I would have right, exactly. He's like, I would have expected you to have been good Samaritans. Just give me like a crust of bread and like a blanket on the floor, and I'll take it. And they're like, we can't even give you that. You need to get out of here. And while he's there, he keeps hearing this howling sound. It's like not exactly animal howling sound.
I mean, it sounds like a person trying to mimic
a
wolf. It is exactly that, but it's still this weird howling. And he's like, what is that howling? And they're just like, it's the wind. Ignore it.
Don't worry about it. But he finds this man locked up in a cell. And the man's like, help me. I've been imprisoned here. You know, I was out with kissing my sweetheart on the bank of a river. And then Brother Jerome used to have a crush on her, and she picked me over him, and he was mad. So he imprisoned me out of jealousy. He's like, is that what a good man of the cloth would do? And this man's like, no, that doesn't sound right. I don't. Yeah. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. And he goes back to Brother Jerome, who's like, why'd you wander off? I told you, get out of the monastery. And he's like, why do you have a man kept prisoner up here? And Brother Jerome's like, that is no man. That is the devil himself. And he's like, that's why there was so much war and strife and hunger and famine and disease and everything like that. He's like, everything bad that's been happening, it's him. Yeah. So I caught him. It took me years. I finally tracked him down, and I caught him in this cell. Do not go near him. Do not let him out. That's the devil.
And he's just like, I don't know about that.
He's like, that. There's no way that man's the devil. I think you are covering up for a story where you're just keeping an innocent man prisoner for like really petty personal reasons. So he like causes a distraction. He sneaks away, and he lets the man loose just by like lifting the one wooden bar on his cell door.
That dude could have totally reached to like out of the like window of his cell to lift up.
The prisoner's telling him how to let him free, and this guy's like, wait a minute. Why do you know how to let yourself free? Why, if you know how I would do it, why haven't you done it yourself before? But he goes ahead and lets the man out. And then there's this very cool scene where this prisoner is like walking through a hall with all these pillars. And as he walks past every pillar, like it's a new shot as he's slowly transforming into a devil. Like he's this bedraggled, bearded old man. And as he walks past, you see his like old beard sort of cleaning up into like the devil goatee. He starts growing horns.
Yeah.
And then he steps out like fully cartoon devil. He's wearing like a turtleneck or something. He's got the like slick black dark hair. Like he looks very classy and cosmopolitan and sinister. And he's like, I'll be leaving now. And then the monks run back out, and they're like, dude, we told you.
Yeah. So then where I got lost here, I think maybe I happened to check my phone right at this part. What happens at the end here? Does this new guy then capture the devil, and does he have him in his place?
Okay. So the reason why this was set in like 1920 or whatever is that then like the bit at the beginning, like the bookends of the story is it's him in modern day talking to his housekeeper, explaining this whole thing to her. Like, that's why you hear howling from this locked room.
Yes.
never let this man out. I went to the ends of the earth to track him down and catch him again and imprison him.
He's
You
why we had
cannot
World
let
War
him
II.
out.
He's why we
Right.
did all that. This stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. So I did catch
Yeah.
that. Yeah. That like that's an interesting one. To it not super scary or anything, but still just this interesting tale of like what if you could catch the devil? What if it actually was real? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and man, that one scene where he just keeps walking down the hall, and every time like you pass just a masterful shot, because it's like the way they pieced it together, it must have been on a dolly.
Mhm.
He had to have been walking at the same speed, no matter like each take, like all this stuff. It's so perfect. It reminded me a lot of the there's the one scene with Loki and Thor walking, and every time they pass the pillar, he's like a different character from the MCU. That was a lot of fun. But man, what a great scene there, and just what a sweaty man. What a sweaty man, just being like, let me tell you my tale. I know you won't believe it, but it's here. It's true. All of it.
Yeah, I like that this one has more of like a folklore feel to it. More
it's
of like
not
a this
sci-fi.
is
It's not
And
speculative.
it's not like a campfire story. It's more of like what the one old man nursing his beer at the end of a tavern bar tells you. It's like that brand of spooky story.
Yeah.
And I think the cinematography is outstanding. Like I said, I didn't know stuff in like 1960 was filmed like this. It's so cool. Please watch this one.
It's an interesting one for sure. For sure. I don't know if I really have much else to say on that one. It's a pretty straightforward one there. So good stuff.
Let's move on to your final selection of the night, which was the telephone one, long distance call.
Yeah,
this is season 2,
one of my favorites.
episode 23.
Season 2,
written by.
Okay.
Yes. Tell me about this one. You said this was one of the most haunting things you had ever seen.
I love this one. Yeah, this is up there in my favorites, along with The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. I am genuinely creeped out by this one. I think this one is terrifying. It is, and the way this one is shot too is also very different from the rest of them. I don't know if you picked up on it right away, but it looks like it's more so filmed on like a home camcorder. It's a much higher frame rate, so it looks more like a
a soap opera or something. It looks like it looks like it's been filmed on video instead of film or something. Or I wondered if like this one had been like digitally remastered or something. It's got that sort of unnerving smoothness.
60 frames a second. It's not that like cinematic 24.
Yes.
It has that look, so immediately just looks and feels different. But it is this young child. It's his birthday. It's his parents and his grandma there, and that grandma is a whippersnapper. She's great. I love her. She's sassy. She like speaks back to the father. I like her a lot. But for the kid's birthday, she gets him this like plastic toy phone. You've probably seen the like Fisher Price exact same thing that he the exact same toy that he gets. And she says this is so you can keep in touch with me when I'm gone. Or something to that effect, right? When I'm not here. And it turns out the grandma is very sick. And that she's kind of holding it together for this birthday, but she's kind of right there. She can kind of go at any minute. And after this party, things get worse very fast. And she ends up passing away. And this is kind of the first major death for the kid, at least from what we're told. This is kind of his first major experience with, hey, you're not going to get to see grandma again. She's no longer here. And he doesn't fully understand that. And he's like, well, I have this phone. I can just call her on this phone, right? And they're just like, yeah, sure. Like, you can call her on the phone. You can talk to her whenever you want. And so that's what he starts doing. He starts playing with this phone to talk to his grandma. They're just like, oh, how cute. Like, he's still talking to his grandma. And then one night they leave him with a babysitter, and something happens where they call the parents back right away. They're like, hey, we had something go wrong. He's okay, but we just had this big spook. Can you come here? And it turns out he almost got hit by a car. This kid. And when they ask him like why he ran out into the middle of the street, he said it's because his grandma told him to. And they're weirded out by that, and they're like, hey, the grandma's no longer around. What's happening here? Like, kid, you shouldn't be doing that. So they take him back home, and the kid just is still constantly obsessed with this phone. And they're like, okay, maybe you should like stop playing with this phone a little much here. It gets to be this real obsessive thing, right? To the point where the kid runs out into the street a second time and dies. He gets hit by a car, all that stuff, and they're horrified. And in that like terror, in that panic, the mom of this kid picks up this phone just to be like why the hell was he so obsessed with this? And when she picks it up and puts it to her ear, she can hear breathing on the other end of the phone. And that is what horrifies me. Just like no words, no speaking, just and it's just like, what in the world is happening? And she freaks out. They need to get rid of this phone. But that is just, man, that is terrifying to me. I think this one is spectacular. It is great. I love it. Melissa, what do you think?
This is another episode that feels like a play. And that's early TV. Before people really knew what to do with TV, was a lot of filmed stage plays.
Short story plays,
that is sort of still in the television language at this time, but this one especially. And all these characters are so richly drawn. I mean, the little boy's 5. There's a limit to how richly drawn he can be. But the grandma, like, her story is that she had 2 children and they both died before her son, this little boy's father, was born. And then she always resented that he went off and married this woman. Like, she's always resented her daughter-in-law, and she prizes her grandson because she, like, her son was all she had in this world. You know, after her 2 previous children died, she was very possessive of him. And now she's very possessive of her grandson. And it kind of makes the parents a little uncomfortable, but they're like, she's so old. She's going to die soon. Let them have this time together. And she has such a hold over her grandson that she's like, I want him to go with me. She's like, I want him to die so that we can be together in the afterlife. And to the point where it's like, you don't want to see those other 2 children you lost. You don't want to see like, have you lost siblings? There's nobody. You're not looking forward to seeing any other person in your life who has died. You want this 5-year-old to die to join you in the afterlife. And the part where the dad, like,
I just want to say one thing on that. I'm wondering if it is more like she is mad at like her son for going off and marrying this woman and kind of leaving her life. So I'm wondering if the grandmother is like secretly also kind of wanting him to experience this big loss. So now you know what I felt
maybe
in this. Just a thought there.
Right. There's a lot to these characters, even though we only know them for 25 minutes. Yeah. And the little boy, like at the part after the mom picks up the phone and hears the breathing, the boy runs off and he like almost drowns in this like decorative pool they have in the backyard, which the scene goes by so fast it does not seem practical to me that he would have drowned. Like when the doctors are there, they're like, oh, I don't know, it's not looking good. We're still working on him, but if only you'd gotten to him a couple minutes earlier. And I'm like, there was not a couple minutes to that entire scene. He was gone for like 30 seconds. Yeah. So the timing is a little tricky to buy. But like while the mom's there just like desperate, like heartbroken, watching these doctors work on her son, the dad goes upstairs and he has this monologue into the toy phone where he's like, Mom, I know you're hurting. I know what you've been through. I know the little Billy was the best part of your entire life. He hasn't even had a life yet, Mom. He's 5 years old. He's barely left this house. He doesn't know how to play baseball. He doesn't know what a school is. He doesn't know what a girlfriend is.
Long pants.
Which is so funny to me. It's like, I know he's going to grow up into other things, but like you can give a child pants at any time you choose, Dad. It's on you that your kid doesn't know what pants are.
Yeah.
But he talks her out of it. And at that time, then the paramedics, the doctors are like, we've got him. It's a miracle. I don't know how we did it, but we've got him back. And that's how that episode ends. And I think it is as effective as it is as a spooky story. I really like just the intimate family drama that it is between these couple characters and how much depth there is to all of these people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This one is still just terrifying though, to hear that, like that breathing on the other side. Like the grandma doesn't even need to say anything. Just the fact that you hear breathing. Like, is that the grandma? Is it something else? Is it some other entity? Right? Like, we don't know exactly. We assume it's the grandma, but man, it's kind of wild. So, good stuff. I like that one a lot.
And our final episode, this is my pick. This is season 3, episode 8. It's a Good Life. Yeah. This is what I think is the scariest episode. And it's that same boy again. It's Bill Mooney, I think is his name. The little boy from the last episode, he's back in this one. And it's also kind of fun to see how just this young child actor has grown in what it is he's able to convey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And because I felt like in Long Distance Call, he's a little older than he's supposed to. Like, they're like, okay, you're like turning 5 in this, so maybe act a little bit younger than you are. Because he has one line in there, I forget what it is. He says something, and it's just like, okay, kid, like, right. I'll give you a pass because you're a kid. And, like, you're not a great actor, but it was just like, that feels like you're trying to be like a 2-year-old. Like, come on, dude. But here in this one, It's a Good Life, he has a specific role, and I feel like he nails it. Like, this kid is horrifying in this one.
So I want to talk about Rod Serling himself for a second. Yeah. Because when you think of the Twilight Zone, you think of Rod Serling walking out and talking to you in the narration, but also like as a physical presence on screen. And it's Long Distance Call is the first episode that we watched where we see that happening, where he walks out on the set and is like, look at this family. Yeah, we're going to tell you the tale of what happens to this family. And this episode, It's a Good Life, starts with a very atypical opening, which he talks about. It's him standing on a stage next to like a map of the United States. And he's like, we're going to tell you a very unique story tonight. So this requires a very unique intro. Here's a map of the United States. You know it. That's probably where you are. He's like, and this is Plainview. And he's like, this little city in like Ohio or something lights up. And he's like, that's all that is left now. Now, the citizens of Plainview don't know if the rest of the world has died, if it has all been destroyed, or if they've been taken to some other plane. But all there is just this one town. Let me introduce you to the cast of characters. And he introduces us to several townspeople. And he talks about this monster. He's like, a monster came to town and it changed everything. This is where the monster lives. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is the monster. And then it cuts to this like 7-year-old boy playing on a fence.
Yep, exactly. And he looks sweet. He looks innocent.
Yeah.
And then he's playing, and then he's on like the back of this swinging fence thing, and it's getting closer to the camera, and it locks into position. And when he finally gets there, he like is looking off camera, and then just has this like change in demeanor as like he's looking at something that he obviously does not like. And like I said, this kid is spooky. This kid is scary.
Yeah.
Like he has he nails this. Like, I don't like that. I'm gonna change that, right? And just, man, he is like holding this town captive here.
Yeah, there's no explanation to it. And we don't get an exact origin of when these powers developed, if he's had them literally since he was born. But this kid has omnipotent psychic power. He can read your mind, so you have to watch your thoughts at all times and making sure you're always thinking happy thoughts. You're always thinking about what a good little boy he is. And he can like create anything. He can transmogrify anything. Yeah. Like he got mad at machines or something, so he turned off all electricity. Cars don't work. And he doesn't like music. Like he doesn't like singing. Like his aunt was singing and he just sort of like zapped her brain. So now she's just this sort of vacant woman.
It was
and if
just
he doesn't like you,
annoying to him, right? It's not that he doesn't necessarily like singing. It's just like, God, I hate that song. Like, will you shut up? Like, stop singing.
Yeah.
Baby shark, right?
Right. If he doesn't like it, he's like, no more. That is gone. Yeah. And if he doesn't like somebody, he sends them to the cornfield. We never go to the cornfield. We never see the cornfield. But like, that is where you are banished. And the episode starts with him. He's playing in the yard, and then like a grocery delivery man comes up. And because this town has been cut off, like their food supply, like everything they have is in such limited supply. Like he's like, we don't have laundry soap. We haven't had laundry soap in years. But he's there to make a grocery delivery to the mom. And he's like, Anthony, good to see you, Anthony. Mighty fine day you've made for us, Anthony. What are you doing out here in the yard? And he's like, I made a gopher with 3 heads. And this delivery man's like, yes, I've never seen a gopher like that before. My mighty fine work, Anthony. And Anthony's like, I'm tired of playing with him now. I'm going to make him be dead. Be dead, gopher. And like, you don't see any of this. Like his hands are off screen. This is so effective at telling you about something that you are not being shown.
Yeah, exactly.
And just this little kid's line reading with just how casually and playfully he throws off, be dead, gopher. Haunting. Absolutely haunting. And like the delivery man goes inside, brings the stuff to the mom, and he's like, I found a couple cans of tomato soup. Anthony likes tomato soup. You'll tell him, right? You'll tell him that I remembered he likes tomato soup and I brought him the soup. Like everybody is trying so hard to like bend over backwards and make this kid's life an absolute dream. Right. So that he won't transmogrify you or send you into the cornfield or whatever. And the mom's like,
change into something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's telling the mom about the 3-headed gopher. And the mom's like, oh, yes, Anthony likes to make all kinds of animals. He made one the other week with very sharp teeth and it tried to bite him. And I almost wanted it to for a minute. And she sort of like trails off and like starts crying. And they're living in a nightmare. I can't imagine a harsher scenario than this child just arrives with unlimited power and no sense of personhood. Like he just doesn't understand empathy yet because he's so little, and he's selfish because a baby is selfish. They've got this sort of self-protection in them where like anything he doesn't like, he wants gone. And so he just starts erasing these very necessary parts of human life. And the adults are like, well, he's a child. We can't get rid of him. We just have to keep playing along and hope that maybe eventually one day he'll decide he wants electricity back.
Yeah.
He wants other states to exist again.
It's interesting because he doesn't really understand consequences yet.
Yeah.
And that is part of the thing with parenting that I've seen other people go through, is like sometimes to teach them a good thing, you have to do something that they might not like. You need to get them used to this concept, and they might not appreciate that right away, but once they do, then they understand it, right? And all that stuff. And so yeah, it's like laundry detergent. Like you don't necessarily understand how good it feels to have clean clothes because you're just a kid. You like rolling around in dirt. You probably don't like taking baths and stuff yet, but like that's such a simple joy in life, right? To have clean clothes. It just like he doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand that there's probably a major like food shortage, like all of that stuff, and that like he could be having much better food if there was more food, like more variety, like all of that stuff, and he just doesn't understand it, right?
He doesn't notice that his parents look sad and scared all the time, and he comments that no kids came around and played with him today, and his dad's like, well, remember the last time you had some friends over to play? You sent them into the cornfield.
Yeah, he's trying delicately to be like, well, whose fault is that? Like, it's like the boy doesn't like dogs, and like you like hear a dog walking around outside and barking, and he sends the dog into the cornfield. And I think he can hear everybody's thoughts, regardless of how close they are to him. And this is like I said, this boy's like 6 or 7 or something. And he's like, I remember once I heard somebody think a not very nice thought about me. I don't remember when it was. I don't remember who that person was. I don't even know where they were. But I heard them think a mean thought about me. So I had to make them go on fire. And the fact that you are like across town, like you're not even in the same room as this boy, and he hears you think something mean about him, and then suddenly you just combust. Yeah, right. Yeah, just
and the fact that
you're on fire.
And just that like childish language, like he doesn't say I set him on fire, it's I made him go on fire.
Right.
Like the like the childish grasp of language makes everything much scarier every time he says something.
Yeah. So they end up it's both TV night and a birthday party for one of the townspeople there. So they watch the TV that Billy is like magically making with his powers. It's some dinosaur show, right? Yeah,
it's just like stop motion dinosaurs fighting each other, and you see the faces of these adults like gathered in chairs in his living room for TV night, and just the sounds of this thing. It's just this sort of like primordial howling and like
squelching
wind noises. It sounds so ugly, even when you look at the screen and it just looks like sort of kitschy old Harryhausen action. Like what's on the screen seems sort of fun, but the sounds of everything are so unnerving. You're seeing all these adults sitting there uncomfortably in these chairs like, oh, yes, Anthony, that's much better than the way TV used to be. Thank you for the TV night, Anthony.
Yeah. They surprise this guy in the town for his birthday. They give him a record. They have a cake, all that stuff. They don't want to play the record in hopes that they don't upset this little kid. He wants to. It's his favorite musician. But it is that risk of like, hey, you are maybe getting a little too selfish there.
Yeah.
This is your party, but it is like, we're living in this kid's world, right? Like,
right. And if he wants to hear, like, he likes music, but he does not like hearing singing. He just wants to hear the instrumentals. So the guys who got the records like, well, I could put it on and just listen to the orchestra part at the beginning. And then the dad's like, but we don't know when he starts singing. We can't risk that. You cannot play the beginning of this Perry Como record. So like one of the townspeople sits down and starts playing the piano and Anthony comes up and sits down next to him and the guy sort of bristles and he's like, it would be really nice, Anthony, if you could tell me what music you want to hear. Yeah.
He's like, just play anything. You're fine. Like, like he seems okay in that moment. Like he enjoys music. He's still discovering stuff. Right. So yeah, they're like they are hoping for. Maybe there is one day where he wants to just read a book and needs light to like read this thing, and it's just like, let me invent a book, and you know what? Let me invent electricity again. And can do all of that. So they continue playing, but man, this birthday guy is just done with it. He is having whiskey. He's being like, man, this is like the last whiskey bottle on earth. Like fuck, man. Like like this is it. Like it gets no better than this. He almost gets suicidal in a way. I don't want to say he gets there exactly, but in the way that he starts flaring up is almost inviting this kid to react.
He's doing it to like end this, whether if it's the kid kills him or like somebody in this house finally does something. And like he's just yelling. He's yelling at everybody. Like while little Anthony's just sitting over there listening to the piano, he's like, somebody take a bottle and just hit him over the head with it. In a minute, this could be over. We could go back to how things were. And the boy gets mad at him. He's like, I don't like you.
You're a bad man.
You're a bad man. And that's when he turns him into a Jack in the Box. And this is like the earliest body horror on television. Just the silhouette of it. And there's just like one frame, one real close up where you see this man's face on like the bouncing Jack in the Box head. And everybody's just horrified.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. And like that is just the thing, is that they are just held captive there. Like that's it. That's their fate. And they can somehow decide to take their lives if they want. They could try to kill this kid if they wanted, but it's probably not going to end well for them, right? Because even if he just like if they don't do it all the way in that one hit, right?
Yes.
Just if he has a thought, right, then like all of that could change. So it's terrifying to be in this like captive position.
Yeah,
like, that's all you can do.
And like that's how the episode ends. There's no answer. It's like this community is either going to come to terms with, we have to kill this kid, or we just have to keep scrounging around for supplies and hope that he will grow up and maybe he will learn some sort of empathy and give us something back.
Yeah. Terrifying. terrifying stuff.
I find this one so chilling.
And then, like,
and it is,
what do you do with that Jack in the Box? It's just there now.
Right. Is he still alive? We don't know. Does the kid go and play with him? Ugh. I had remembered this episode being that he turns his dad into a Jack in the Box for standing up to him. But then I realized I was thinking of a Treehouse of Horror episode where Bart has these powers and he turns Homer into a Jack in the Box.
I gotcha.
It's only Bart's dad.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Twilight Zone, like I said at the start, is just a wild show. I still think it's a lot of fun to watch today.
Yeah.
A lot of really, really good stories, fascinating things to think about. There might not be the best costumes or makeup, but man, for the time they made this, like it was such a good show.
Yeah, I think anytime there is some sort of a special effect, it does look as good as it was possible to look for 1960.
Oh yeah. And they do a lot of creative things of like, how can we spook you and have this as a concept, but not necessarily show it? Like, how can we make this happen or stuff like that? And that's what I think is where the show really, really shines, is that it is not just trying to be scary. It's trying to be creative. Like it's actively trying to solve these problems and these things. And how do we tell these short stories, these speculative sci-fi stories, or these horror stories, or just things to make you think? And they do a really, really good job.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. The Twilight Zone.
It's a classic for a reason. You know, it's timeless for a reason. You can always go back and find whatever it is you're looking for. If you want the folly of man parable episodes, or if you want the more sci-fi ones, if you want horror, if you just sort of want a whimsical, interesting tale, like there's so many different flavors within the big cohesive whole that is the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, I guess that's about all we have to say on the Twilight Zone. So let's see. Let me go over here and pull up Bingo.
I already know I have nothing. Like, I've got only two things left for Bingo, and they're so specific.
I might give you one of these things here. In It's a Good Life, the delivery guy does not have a bag. He has a box of groceries, but there are some tall things sticking out of it.
No, you don't understand. The premise of this bingo square is when somebody comes in with the paper bag of groceries that has a tall item such as a baguette or celery sticking out of the top of it, purely to act as visible evidence of further groceries.
That's what I would say this box is, because you don't really see what else is in the box. And once he starts pulling it out, it's just other box. It's like gift wrapped stuff. So you don't really see what it is. But he has this one thing that is like, it's a vegetable. Like you can obviously tell that like, oh, he has groceries. Like this is what that stuff is.
The groceries are too plot relevant. I'm talking about like just the flimsiest little piece of business for a mom and a kid's movie to do. Just come in with a bag with one celery in it.
If you want it, I'll give it. But if you don't want it,
I have yet to find the spirit of what it was I was looking for.
Well, there you go. Besides that, then no update on Bingo. No reaction of an animal to judge trustworthiness. No expository art. Anything like that. So, unfortunately, no other updates for Bingo. Okay, so I guess I forgot to hit the Bingo button on screen so you guys can see it, but there is no update. So, whatever. Melissa, recommendations.
Yeah.
For people who enjoy the Twilight Zone, what else might they like?
There was great Twilight Zone parodies in The Simpsons among their many Treehouse of Horror episodes. There's also a running bit in Futurama. One of the fake TV shows that exists inside that universe is a Twilight Zone parody called The Scary Door. Please just go to YouTube and look up The Scary Door. There's some real funny clips there. There's stuff like Are You Afraid of the Dark? The After Hours episode. Seems like it could have been a big inspiration on this one Are You Afraid of the Dark episode called The 13th Floor, where these kids who live in this apartment building where the 13th floor has always been abandoned, they go up there just looking for like a blank space to play around. And they do find like it's blank up there one day, and then the next day they go back, and then there's like a weird factory up there with these very sort of unnatural mannequin like people. That's a really creepy episode. I don't know where you can stream Are You Afraid of the Dark right now, but find that one. Find The Tale of the 13th Floor. And for more
Are You
like
Afraid
really
of the Dark was on Nickelodeon, right?
Yes, yeah.
So that might be on Paramount Plus.
Maybe, yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
I hope it is preserved out there for generations to come. If you want more like really startling, kind of unnerving black and white imagery, there is the recent movie, The Tale of Macbeth, which is on, or like The Tragedy of Macbeth, which is on Apple TV Plus, directed by Joel Coen, one of the Coen brothers, in his first solo directorial effort, sans other brother. Stars Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand as Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. It's just a straightforward Macbeth adaptation, but the thing is shot in black and white in this really stark, minimal, eerie, surreal set of castle set pieces.
That's cool.
When I watched it, the only thing it made me think of was the Twilight Zone. That and something called The Mysteries of Harris Burdick, or it may also be known as The Chronicles of Harris Burdick. This is a children's book by Chris Van Allsburg, who's the writer and illustrator behind The Polar Express and Jumanji. And Harris Burdick is this story where the conceit of it is there's this tale of this children's book author who came to a publisher saying he had like 12 short stories that he wanted to publish in an anthology. And the publisher's like, I don't know, this isn't sounding right for us. And this writer's like, well, hold on, I'll give you some time to think on it. Each of these stories has an illustration to go with it. For each story, I'm going to leave you one illustration. Mm-hmm. And that page is the picture, the title of the story that it's from, and a caption for that picture. He's like, I'm going to leave these 12 pages with you. Think about it. I'll come back later. Cool. And that man never showed up again. Nobody could ever track him down. Nobody has the complete stories. All that there are these 12 very eerie illustrations.
Interesting.
Very compelling. Just this strange, striking imagery in just this like black and white pencil illustration style. There is one of these images is called The House on Maple Street, and it is a suburban house just lifting up like it's a rocket ship. And the caption just says, it was a perfect liftoff. And so you're just left with this like, what is it? What's happening? Yeah. And I was exposed to this in the 6th grade as like an English class assignment. You know, our teacher showed us these pictures and she's like, write a short story about what you think this is. That's cool. It seems like that's how this continues to live. I don't know if it's anything anybody has in their private home, but like this seems like a very common classroom activity. When I Google it, I get a lot of like classroom and library activities for it. But look this stuff up. I think these illustrations are so beautiful and so compelling. They're so strange.
Cool. Good stuff.
And I just want to shout out 2 other things from review show history.
Yeah.
We watched a movie called The Vast of Night. I think like summer 2020, maybe. This is an Amazon Prime movie, a very small little independent movie. And it's about this like
117.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And it is an independent. It's set in the 1950s in some like New Mexico town. and it's about a telephone operator and a radio DJ who get these weird calls, like weird broadcast interferences, and they think aliens are coming to town.
Yeah.
And it's just about like all the evidence they hear coming together, everything all the hearsay around the town, and then them like rushing around trying to like get the telephone operator. She's like 15. This is like her after school job is like working the switchboard. She's like, I have to go home. I have to get my little sister. I don't know where we can go. We have to find someplace safe if they are coming for us.
Yeah.
And the movie's done in these series of one-shot segments. It's a really beautifully minimal movie. And it's a movie that's got kind of a Twilight Zone framework to it.
Yeah.
Even though I will tell you, it's not as twisty as you would expect. It's surprisingly straightforward. But I admire how straightforward and minimal this movie is. I really enjoyed it. It is something that has stuck with me. Check out The Vast of Night. And I think last Shame-Timber, one of the movies on your Shame-Timber list was Looper.
Yeah.
Looper,
Looper's
which is a time travel story where Bruce Willis comes back from the future to kill this little boy who's going to grow up to become this like terrifying megalomaniac, like crime dictator in the future. And that little boy, that's such a stellar performance.
Absolutely.
He is so scary, just being this innocent like 4-year-old. It is the best successor to It's a Good Life. I think these two things are like in conversation with each other. So if you also find It's a Good Life so terrifying, check out Looper. It's a sci-fi movie. I wouldn't classify it as a horror movie, but that aspect of the movie is genuinely scary.
Yeah, we covered that on number 175 here on the review show. Yeah, so my recommendations, again, to go back to something we have covered on the review show, Dimension 404. This was more so a sci-fi anthology. But also had some of this speculative fiction, had some horror mixed in there. It felt very Twilight Zone like, but it was a lot more lighthearted, I feel like, than some of the Twilight Zone stuff is very heavy, very deep. Yeah. Just like, this is tragic. This makes you think. Like, this makes you really want to just, hug your little loved ones and be thankful you're alive and all that stuff. Whereas I feel like Dimension 404 was like, let's pay homage to the Twilight Zone, but we'll be more sci-fi focused, and we're just gonna have some fun. Like we're just gonna do some weird stuff. But we covered that on number 161 of the review show. So go check that out as well. Also, what we did a couple weeks ago, Junji Ito's Shiver. He does a lot of short stories. He has a number of short story collections out there that you can get. Each story is usually about like 30 pages, not all that long. But yeah, these real Twilight Zone stories about, a guy whose neighbor is to this sick girl, and she looks like she has all these holes in her skin, and what's happening with this, or this family that works this little restaurant, and their food is so greasy that the grease has just infected the house so much that they just are these grease people. Right. It seems kind of ridiculous, but there's so much interesting stuff in there, and it's gross. It's terrifying. They do all sorts of stuff like that. Of course, if you want some more modern day stuff, there is more modern day takes on the Twilight Zone that you can go check out. Jordan Peele, who directed Get Out and Nope and Us. He is the Rod Serling of this modern day Twilight Zone. I can't speak for the quality on it. I haven't seen it myself, but there is that. That is one of them. And then, of course, Black Mirror is a more modern day take on this like horror anthology. But that is also very like technology focused. Not necessarily sci-fi per se, but is centered around technology and taking technology to these extreme levels. It's not necessarily centered on technology all the time. It might be a story about something, but it uses technology in the story as the like lifting off point here. But yeah, that one is interesting as well. Go check that out. So yeah, I think that would be the recommendations that we have for the Twilight Zone. Go check all of that stuff out. Melissa, next week here on the podcast, it'll be the first week in November, but usually what we do at the end of each month is our end of the month special. We pick some comic book or TV show or what have you, and we stick with that story multiple times. It's not something we can do in a single week like we typically do here on the show, but we watch multiple seasons or we read multiple volumes to its completion. And recently, we started Kaiju Max. This is a comic book written and drawn by Xander Cannon, all about these kaiju, giant monsters stuck in a prison. And it is a prison story in and around the prison. We do get stories outside of it. And it's been an interesting one to check out. My goal on the podcast this year has been to bring more kaiju content onto the show. And I think I've done a good job of that this year. If I can pat myself on the back here.
Once we will have completed the Kaiju Max series, we have spent 5 episodes this year on Kaiju, which honestly is more than I thought we would get to when you said you wanted more Kaiju. I was thinking we'd do it like 2.
Did you know just a handful, good handful of stuff. But Kaiju Max is the last kaiju bit of content that I wanted to bring on the show. But yes, since we were doing Twilight Zone this week here at the end of the month because it was Halloween week, we are gonna be yelling the next bit of Kaiju Max this next week. And then we will finish it up at the end of November. And then, of course, December, we like to take those last 2 weeks or so off for the holidays, for the end of the year and all of that stuff. So we don't do an end of the month thing in December. But for this next week, Kaiju Max, we are reading volumes 3 and 4 for this one. You guys can find that on Comixology Unlimited. And if you would like to read them all in one go, they are nicely collected in Kaiju Max Deluxe Edition Volume 2. So just be aware that they're collected in multiple places here. That is also available on Comixology Unlimited. It looks like we will be taking a dip into the women's prison for this next bit here. So I'm interested to see where this journey continues. But Melissa, after that, what are we doing the week after that? It's your turn to pitch.
It is. I looked at the episodes we've done so far this year on the review show, and I realized we haven't gotten to anything animated. Except for like, if we're watching a TV show that has an animated episode, like that happened with Fringe, that happened with The After Party, we've seen animation, but we have not covered an entirely animated title.
So I've got 3 done at least like 1 or 2 animes, right?
Not this year. Well, on like the Patreon, we talked about the one episode of
Yasuke for the
yes,
Pilots
thank you.
Club. Yeah.
Yeah, we did it. We did one for the Pilots Club. Like I said, there've been animated episodes or segments of live action shows. But no, we haven't gotten anything animated in 2022. So I have 3 movies for you, all about cartoon supervillains. One of my favorite things. So I've got 2 of my very favorite movies in the series of pitches, Kyle, and one brand new movie from earlier this year that I haven't seen yet.
Sure.
Well, let's go ahead and start with that brand new movie. Pitch number 1 is a new animated movie from just earlier this year called The Bad Guys.
Yeah, okay.
After a lifetime of legendary heists, notorious criminals Mr. Wolf, Mr. Snake, Mr. Piranha, Mr. Shark, and Miss Tarantula are finally caught. To avoid a prison sentence, the animal outlaws must pull off their most challenging con yet, becoming model citizens. Under the tutelage of their mentor, Professor Marmalade, the dubious gang sets out to fool the world that they're turning good. I don't know a lot about this. Yeah. I think I have heard bits from just podcasters or just people I know who are parents who've said, "Oh, I took my kids to that. We all had a good time."
Interesting.
See, it's got a solid cast here. Sam Rockwell is Mr. Wolf. Always good to start out with. We've got Awkwafina, Richard Ayoade, Zazie Beetz, surely others. I don't need to know all of them.
Yeah.
Review show alum Craig Robinson is in here. We've got many people. We've got a really interesting cast. Animal supervillains, animals stealing things. That's all I know. Seems like a good time.
Okay. Good pitch.
Pitch number 2, personal favorite of mine, something I've really been wanting to get on the show. Megamind.
I knew it was coming. Yep.
This is a movie from, I think, 2011 or 2012. It is a DreamWorks feature. And it is about Megamind, who is this alien supervillain who's been locked in a vengeful combat with a superhero named Metro Man. And it's about what happens when he finally defeats and destroys Metro Man. And then he has to figure out what to do with his life.
Yeah.
He's like, finally, victory. I've done it. I can rule the city. And he does that for a couple weeks. And then he's like, I'm lonely. I don't know what to do with myself. So then he, in secret, adopts a secret identity and starts training a new superhero just so that he has somebody else to fight. And it's about how that goes wrong.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think this movie's a very interesting superhero tale. I think it's really solid. A personal fave. And pitch number 3, not exactly a supervillain, but an interesting story on protagonist and antagonist relationships. Somebody who knows they are the antagonist of the story and wants to be a good guy. Wreck-It Ralph.
Ah, there you go.
A movie I believe you have not seen.
I actually have not. Yeah.
Which surprises me because this is such a love letter to video games. I hardly know anything about video games, and I can still tell how much care and how many Easter eggs are packed into this movie.
Yeah.
Wreck-It Ralph is the bad guy in an arcade game called Fix-It Felix Jr. He wrecks up a big building, and then Felix comes out like, I can fix it. And then he has to repair the building and chase Ralph away. And so game after game after game for decades, Ralph has endured this. At the end of every game, Felix gets a medal. And he's like, I want the medal. I'm tired of being this outcast. I'm tired of being the bad guy. I want to be the hero for a change.
Yeah.
And so through the interconnected wires of this arcade, he goes into another game to try and get its medal, trying to go somewhere new where people don't know him, where he can be the hero. And he sort of breaks the barriers between the games, and he lets a bug out into all the interconnected games. And he has to learn how to stop them. Otherwise, the whole arcade could go down.
Interesting. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. So pitch number 1 was The Bad Guys, right? That's just the name of that one?
Yep.
The
Bad Guys.
Not to be confused with one of my favorite K-dramas entitled Bad Guys. And Bad Guys Vile City, the sequel.
No, this one's different. This one's got a tarantula lady in it. I don't know if the K-drama has that.
Not at all. Okay. Man.
And pitch number 2, Megamind. Pitch number 3, Wreck-It Ralph. For the
Ralph.
listener, I own these on Blu-ray. I'm holding these up to Kyle to visualize the choice he has to make.
Yeah. Man, I think I'm gonna go with Megamind. Because that one is fantastic. I have watched that one before, but it's been so long since I've seen it that I don't really remember it all that much, besides knowing like that was good. I liked that one. And I think that one will be just a fun one to talk about, since we love our good old superhero stories here on the podcast. This is an interesting twist on that. So good stuff. That's
excellent choice. I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's in 2 weeks. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that is about it for this week on the review show. So Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities. This is a show where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kid shows you feel like only you remember. We just put out our Halloween special this year, which also marks our 2nd anniversary. We released our first episodes on Halloween 2020.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So we watched thank you. We watched Mr. Boogedy, which is a 1980s made-for-TV like Disney Halloween special about a family that runs a joke shop, and they move into a house that's haunted, and they have to defeat a Mr. Boogedy.
There you go.
It's very fun. Look it up on Disney Plus. It's 45 minutes long. It's delightful.
That's cool. It's fun. If you guys want to follow me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you guys would like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you guys are watching the YouTube version of this, go check out one of the other videos that we got up right over there. That would help us out a ton. Of course, you guys know the deal with all of that stuff. This has been number 228, right? Is that what we said at
29.
the start? 229, the Whatnauts